Hello everyone, this is Dins and welcome to another video. I know it's been a really long time since I uploaded the last one, which coincidentally was also another enormous D&D drawing. I promise it's not the only thing that I make as an artist, but these are just the kind of drawings where I actually feel like taking the time to edit them into videos, I guess. But I am sorry for how little I actually upload. I do record quite a bit, but I just don't really get around to video editing because Adobe Premiere Pro just does not agree with me, or my old computer, I guess. But for this one I really wanted to go through the trouble because this drawing means a lot to me, as you can imagine. I made this drawing of our D&D group for Dungeon of the Mad Mage, like the title says, as a gift for my DM and one of the players as well, and kind of all of them really, because I just really like taking the time to commemorate our group when I have kind of a good opportunity to make something like this, because you know, you go through a lot together, things can change from one moment to the next, which we kind of experienced when several members of our group had to leave quite suddenly after I finished this drawing. So I look back on it very fondly, and I'm really glad that I did this drawing when I had the chance to. I'll talk a little bit more about the individual characters later in the video, probably when I get around to actually coloring them, but maybe I'll talk a little bit about the drawing style and technique first, because you can see, if you've seen the last one, that the style is a little bit different here. For the last video I decided to go for kind of a lineless style, because that was something that I'd been experimenting a lot at that point, and I really enjoyed the look of. At the end of the ride, it has a kind of crispness that you don't really get with line art the way that I do it, and I really like that. But I experienced with that drawing the struggle of drawing something like that with that many layers, with that many characters overlapping, so I decided for this one, because I was feeling a little bit under the weather while I was working on it, that I would just keep it simple and go with inks and colors like I normally would, which already took plenty of time, so I'm glad that I did that. You can see me inking right now, and it's a doozy. It took me a long time. You'd think that art being my job that I would be faster at it, but I am not. One of the first things you'll probably notice seeing the drawing is that the group is pretty much huge. I did include 2 NPCs as well as the Mad Mage, kind of the titular character, I guess, because he's such a intimidating background presence. I felt like I kind of had to, but you know, even aside from that, there are still 7 of us, or there were at that point in time, which made this kind of a huge challenge for me. The last drawing I also included a few NPCs, but one of them was a shield and the other was a Holophant, so this was kind of a step up in that department. But it was also really cool to get to do so many of us together, and to kind of see where some characters really mesh together in terms of style and in terms of like cultural inspiration. You'll see better when I actually get to all of them, but 2 of the different characters in the group, including mine, have kind of like a Norse influence, 2 have like Egyptian influence. There's actually 2 different paladins in the group, but they both have very different vibes, so actually for once, like putting them all together like this was, you know, it's nice to get kind of an outside view of what this party that you've been imagining all this time is like. And it is a really cool party also. I'm really lucky that I got to be a part of it, because I wasn't there from the beginning for this one, unlike the Descent to Avernus group that I drew before. I was initially just kind of an occasional guest player on this one, and it's only really when a party member unfortunately had to leave that they very courteously extended me an invitation to be a part of it, and I really haven't looked back since. They're lovely people. The DM is also my best friend, and he puts so much of his own creativity into this, because you'd think Mad Mage is kind of a dungeon crawl, right? It doesn't really have much plot, normally, or it does, but not really the kind of character depth that you would enjoy in an RP heavy campaign. But in every level that we do, many of which are entirely homebrewed, he puts so much personal story in everything, linking all the characters together. It's really awesome to get to be a part of. Every episode brings new revelations and new plot twists and stuff, and it's really mind-blowing. I've never really been part of something like this, and that's one of the reasons why I wanted to commemorate the experience, I guess. Now, I will be talking a little bit about the actual characters in this video, starting with the Drow sisters, Demetria and Danikla, the ones in the top right. The main reason I'm already starting to talk about them is because I actually lost the footage of my coloring them, because the part of the video got corrupted. So, yeah. These two are actually my favorite NPC, I think, that I've played with in this campaign so far. One is a fighter and the other is a cleric, but mostly they kind of just joined us on our quest and played us like a complete fiddle, because by the end of it we kind of unwittingly gave them the power they need for complete domination of kind of the other Drow families in the part of the Underdark where we were, which was kind of funny, because I don't think our group even really realized what we were doing at the time, which is just very peak Drow, I think. But yeah, we would have done it again in a heartbeat, I think. I mean, look at him. The first character that you're actually seeing get colored is Rakesh. He is a kind of an interesting multi-class. He is a barbarian and also a bard, which is quite whack. I have seen people make that combination before, but I've never seen it in play. In effect, he's kind of a really funny, kind of goofy character because he likes to activate his rage by rapping furiously. Very fun. Unfortunately, he was one of the players that had to leave shortly after I finished this drawing, but I'm glad I got to include him still, because he is kind of a cool presence and he meshes together very well, both backstory-wise and visually, with several of the other characters, but most prominently the Turtle Wizard cleric that I'll talk about later. Next up to be colored is my own character, Halvar Greenshield. He is a paladin, the second paladin in the group actually. The other one is below him, which I'll get to next. But Halvar in particular is an Oath of the Ancients one, so he's kind of a nature paladin, although he has a bit of a dual nature in him. He's also a Divine Soul Sorcerer, and our DM revealed in our last session that he's apparently a demigod because his dad is Balder, which is buck wild. I did not really plan for that, but I'm loving it. But yeah, that kind of gives you an idea of his character. He's just very restrained. He's got loads of oaths of celibacy, of sobriety, of all of that stuff going on. He's a little bit of a constipated character, but he's also, he's got a lot of good boy energy, and I really like playing him. He's a big contrast to Shamsil, who I played in Descent to Avernus. He's really a lot more, open about how much he cares about other people, and he's very much there to just support everyone else through their drama and their hard times. I just love his design so much. I actually reworked it a little bit for this drawing, against my better judgment. I know it looks a little bit like he has like Special K cornflakes stapled to his armor. It's supposed to be lichen because his whole thing is kind of a pun on Shield Lichen because his name is Greenshield. It looks like cornflakes, I'm sorry. Next up is, like I mentioned before, the second paladin of the group. This is Sir Loras Lionheart, the Oath of the Crown paladin, and he's very much kind of a typical fighting for chivalry and all that is good, and he's very haughty, very snobbish. I just love him. He's going through a bit of a character arc where he's learning to be paternal about the central figure in this drawing, Lucifer. But he also has an actual child of his own, which some dramatic things have happened to at this point. In general, though, I really love him as a character. He's very entertaining, very different from my paladin also, which means that their dynamic is actually quite funny at times. They're kind of the dads of the group, unintentionally perhaps, but yeah, he's also very, very handsome, so of course I had to put him front and center there. Next up, we have Lucy, better known as Lucifer, though that's not really his real name. He's just so edgy that he decided to name himself that. He is a hilarious character. I really like him. I mean, I like everyone, but he has kind of taken a special place in my heart. He is the blood hunter of the group, as you may suspect, considering his everything. He is quite literally like an emo teenager. He recently got turned into a vampire because he was bitten, and I was a little too late on the remove curse, unfortunately, whoops. But it's been a real blast. It's kind of become this puberty metaphor running gag. He is prone to running away in dramatic moments, but he also has a lot of depth to him as a character. He's really fun. He's kind of been the instigator of a lot of very thoughtful and fun and kind of emotional role-playing scenes, so I really like him. One of the weapons that he's wielding in this is a special weapon made for him called Scream Stealer, which I really had fun kind of doing the weird textured blade look it has going on. Just all around really fun character to draw, and fun character to get to play with. He is a delight. Up next is our Vidalcan artificer named Treldin, who is a very interesting character. He is actually a homebrew kind of subclass of artificer, which my DM has called the perfectionist, which means that he has replaced several parts of his body with these kind of cybernetic magitech enhancements, including his legs, his lungs, one of his eyes, which lets him do all of these, movement things, detection-based magics essentially that are homebrewed to be the tech, which is really interesting and funny, especially when you realize there's quite a bit of anti-magic fields going on in the dungeon. So sometimes you just enter a room and he falls over and starts choking, which I really shouldn't laugh about that, but it has been quite funny when we had to sleep in the hallway because the dormitories were protected against magic. He's kind of a card, but I really enjoy him. He's also very good support in our group. He's kept us alive through many situations. And he uses all of these crystals that he can use to kind of cast magic that would normally be above what he can manage. So he's really been kind of vital to our survival, being a bunch of idiots. Next up is our beautiful ranger, Ilfcona, on top of her dire wolf, Hati, who is actually, as it turns out, kind of a god also, but we're not going to talk about that because I don't really know what's going on with that, and she unfortunately had to leave the group recently. But Ilfcona was a really nice character. She is kind of a badass, much like Halvar. She has kind of Norse influences. She had really dramatic backstory actually, but being the only woman in the group somehow, despite half the players being female, she's actually the only female character that anyone made. Whoops. She was kind of caring, kind of a mother figure for the other players, which was really fun. She was also incredibly powerful. Let no one tell you that rangers are underpowered, because Jesus Christ, we miss her presence every day, especially when we're being murdered. Next up we have another very cool character, our Turtle Kun. He's not currently being played anymore because his player switched characters, but he was the kind of wizard-cleric combination of the group, who was kind of the one that cast most of the really cool magic, the really heavy hitting stuff. He was also kind of thematically linked to Rakesh, the other one with kind of an Egyptian backstory, and I just loved working on his design. He looks really badass. I hadn't really drawn a turtle before, so it was a fun challenge to get to make one based on the guidance of the player. And I hope I did an okay job, but really badass character. Also, his story is very much related to the gods, like many of the characters in this campaign, which made for a lot of intense story sessions. So I miss him being around, but the new character is also just really interesting, very similar lore-wise. So I'm glad we're still getting to kind of explore those depths. going over them all now, it kind of strikes me that of all of the characters here, only 2 of them actually have the gender of the character and of the player the same. Somehow all of the girls made a male character, and of all the guys only 2 of them actually made a male character. So I didn't really notice that before, but just going over them now, that's kind of funny to me. I know there's a lot of groups where people kind of stick to their own gender, but in ours that is clearly not a thing. Anyway, with that being said, let's have a look at the final result, shall we?